Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out Action Comics issue 1075 by Mark Waid, Mariko Tamaki, Joshua Williamson, Clayton Henry, Michael Shelfair, Skylar Partridge, John Bognadov, Norm Rapmon, Matt Herms, and Marissa Louise. Phantoms continues this week as Mark Waid returns to Krypton with Clark and his Kryptonian parents, who have all been arrested by Roseanne and the Science Council of Krypton. Clark awakens to learn of their situation from his mother, who explains that Roseanne took his solar bracelets along with Jaw's inventions so the Science Council can take them for themselves. Jaw reveals that Ro is actually doing this so no one can actually challenge him intellectually. The man sees himself as a bit of a failure and has now gleaned a little bit of power within Krypton's High Council, so he wants to take that and basically make it so that no one's more smarter than him. It's always interesting when we get to see Krypton and not rely on Superman's recordings or what he has seen in the fortress of it, and it's something we get to see kind of raw, and more often than not we learn that it wasn't this perfect science-based society that we were led to believe, or that Superman was led to believe. They have a lot of the same problems as humanity, such as like personified with the Roseanne, how there's this greed and lust for power, something which you don't normally see with Kryptonians. Usually they're not like that, they're very far and few between. Clark also realizing that they have a lot of the same problems as humanity, and him coming to that realization is really quite cool as well. It also kind of sours him, just very slightly, at least that's how I took it, on like his father, because it's like, surely this man is not like how he is right now. He's, very angry, and rightly so, but he's completely different from what he knows this man used to be. Another thing that Clark notices is that Jaw should be the one presenting the Phantom Zone projector to the council, and they kind of pass it and make it their way of getting rid of their criminals, but that doesn't seem to be happening now. So maybe him being there, time has changed, or maybe Aethyr has done something, since Clark did get there by falling into a whirlpool of Phantom Zone energies, so it's possible he could be in an alternate timeline, or a timeline that doesn't exist anymore. Who knows, I'm sure we'll find out at a later time. The guards soon come by and they are taken to the council, but before they get there, we check in on Superboy and Superman, who try and tell the Khund attacking the Intergalactic Museum that they too have precious items stolen by the museum, and the Khund destroying it all will mean no one gets what they are owed. The Khund leader doesn't really care, just wanting the bones of their dead leader, so Keenan has Connor spin him around like a top with his tactile telekinesis, and this is a really fun use of the power, just humiliate a intergalactic warlord with it, and it really kind of de-escalates the situation as well, because you're this warlord, like how do you even react to that? You've kind of taken all of his power away from him, which is really quite cool. Connor makes it known that he won't be doing this for every Khund, and Keenan knows that this warlord isn't actually the leader of the interstellar fleet outside, as there are more influential admirals above him, and he wants to negotiate with those guys, not this guy. The heroes are beamed aboard the ship and meet with Over-Admiral Kwa, and Keenan gets a neat idea on how to beat the Khund as he listens to the Over-Admiral posture and regale them with all his titles regarding the various people he has beaten to get into his position. But before he can enact his idea, Superboy chimes in and challenges the Admiral to combat, with the winner getting command of the entire Khund fleet. This is such a fun little detour in the book that while Clark's story is more of an adventure type, Connor and Keenan's is a little bit more action orientated, and both characters lend themselves well to the setting. I like that they are being used, as I said in my previous review, in a situation we don't normally see these two characters in, which is a space adventure. We never really see them do that, so that's pretty damn cool. Back on Krypton, Clark, Lara, and Jaw are all taken to the Science Council, where Ro shows off the experiments Jaw was supposedly hoarding for himself, wanting to take them for the Council and for the good of all Krypton. Waid throws an interesting twist here, as Roseanne is the one who actually presents the Phantom Zone projector to the Council, knowing exactly what it is and telling them that they could exile their criminals there instead of blasting them off in rockets into cryosleep. What's interesting is that Jaw actually finds that as an insane notion, since condemning criminals to an eternal realm where they don't actually have a physical body is just cruelty. This is kind of a neat twist. It makes me think like, oh, maybe there is some sort of timeline, time travel shenanigans happening here. Like maybe this was meant to be Jor at one point, but now things have changed. But I like this change. This is a really good change, as Clark is shocked to learn that his father wasn't actually the one who proposed this and was against it. And it makes him like his father even more, because he shares the same ethics as his father now, because he too thought the zone was quite unethical. Even Lara begins to stand up to Roseanne, knowing full well that he's just envious of Jor-El's discoveries because he's not as smart as the man, as well as because she wouldn't marry him years ago. Ro orders the family to be removed from the building, and the elves are free to leave with their inventions back in the hands of the Science Council. Clark thinks that he's out of options now and can't actually go anywhere, but Jor reveals that he actually took the bracelets while Lara was standing up to Ro and taking attention away from him, which was apparently all part of the plan, it seems, leaving Clark to realize his parents are real partners in crime. Clark wants to get back into the zone as quick as possible as Aethyr continues to torture the inmates, angered that they never really gave him the praise that he wanted, and he actually kills them in some really cruel and violent ways, with one being trapped in like a steel cell that he slowly crushes until the man is just turned to like a viscera goo. It's very, very violent for a Superman comic as well, and he ends up using the orb he carries to gather up the matter that he created within the zone, absorbing it back into the orb to gain more power for himself. Again, we aren't really getting anything with this villain. His whole deal has been reiterated so many times now that it's just nothing now. Like, we know that he did this because he wanted the praise and no one gave it to him, so now he is mad. We don't need to know that over and over again, and I don't know what it is with this book between this and the Supergirl backup, which we'll talk about, that just keeps doing this, and it feels like they're starting to feel the pressure of that weekly schedule where this story probably would have been more tighter in a 4 or 5 part, not something that's being stretched out to something like 8 parts. Clark meanwhile goes with Jor to Argo City, where he meets with his uncle Zor-El, whom will help him with the bracelets. Clark also has a brief interaction with Kara, who of course is a teenager here, and despite her saying that she is a well-behaved child to Clark when they first met, Clark seeing her here proves the opposite, as she never stops complaining about being bored. As Zor-El looks over the bracelets, Clark asks Jor-El about someone making matter in the zone, but Jor reveals that he actually tried to generate a small solid stone inside of it, and to do so it blacked out the entire neighborhood for 2 days, meaning it requires a hell of a lot of energy, and any amount of land in the zone would dangerously destabilize it even further. Back on Earth meanwhile, Jimmy and Lois notice something is happening in the sky as Aethyr has arrived on Earth and is absorbing the sun into his special orb and turned the Phantom Zone into something else. Now this is a pretty neat development for the story, since I assumed that we would be generally sticking to the Phantom Zone. Like, Clark would eventually find his way back there and fight Aethyr, and then that would be like basically the setting of the finale or the last couple of issues. But I like that we're now transitioning back to Earth. Earth is now in jeopardy, Metropolis is in jeopardy, you know, the classic Superman stuff. He's got to come back and save his adopted homeworld. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how Mark Waid kind of rounds out this story, and hopefully they make Aethyr a bit more of an interesting character, since right now it's not really. As this is the landmark 1075th issue, we get not 1 but 2 backups this issue, beginning with the usual Mariko Tamaki's Supergirl story, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because once again, it's a nothing story. We do check back in with Earth as Power Girl asks Superman where Kara has gone, but yet again we get more of the she's on an important mission that only she can do, as it's an impossible task and only she can do it. Just kind of roundabout storytelling that we've had for the past 6 issues. Skylar Partridge's art still continues to be the best thing about this story. It just looks so damn good, and it has fun with its paneling and how it sets out sequences, and Marissa Louise's colors really make it all just pop. It's just very bright and colorful, and it looks really nice. Kara does manage to get the prisoner to an escape ship, and they end up fighting the piranha aliens who captured them, and the prisoner admits some type of fierce psychic ability makes the aliens run off, and after escaping we do learn the prisoner is called, or was like booked under the name Destroyer of Worlds, which again does not narrow down who this person is, since that name or that moniker has been given to dozens and dozens of characters in the DC universe. It's just very frustrating because if the book just gave us that one little bit of information in each part that once put together and, once you get to that final part, it all starts sort of clicking together, it could be a very compelling mystery, but we're not getting any of that. We're just getting the same thing over and over again. And it makes me, as I've said in previous reviews, think that this story was only meant to be maybe 3 parts, maybe 4 parts, and they've just chopped it all up into a weekly release, and now it's just nothing, where these parts just have nothing to go on and there's nothing to do or progress the story forward in any meaningful way. After a lackluster Supergirl story, the book really picks up as Joshua Williamson joins the book for a story focusing on Perry White, who on the eve of a mayoral election decides to go for a little walk at night, reliving some of the old memories he's had of the city of tomorrow, as he's lived in the city his entire life, so its streets, its roofs, and its parks all hold memories for him. Eventually he arrives at the Daily Planet and heads up to the bullpen, where even more memories flood his mind, reminding him of how much he loved his job as the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet. Perry soon meets with Clark, who is finishing up a story while the bullpen is quiet late at night. Comic veterans John Bogdanov and Norm Rapmond draw this story, and I love the modern setting since it's set within the current Williamson run of the character, but their art is very late 80s, early 90s styled, so it encapsulates that era very well. So we have a Clark here who's got this oversized Mr. Rogers sweater on, he's got very loose baggy pants, stuff that he would wear back then, and it just works with the character because it's just such a timeless look, and they make it look just so timeless. I also like how John draws Superman as well, with the angled chin, and there's a really great part where he kind of like winks at the camera, winks at us as the audience, which is really always nice. So they don't do that enough anymore, but they did during the 80s and 90s, and it's always really nice. Perry asks where Lois is, and Clark luckily covers for her since Lois is off doing Superwoman activities in what appears to be Skatara. She's like fighting dinosaurs, which is really damn cool. Anyway, he tells Perry that she's at home sleeping, and Perry's quite glad about that. He's happy that she's found some sort of work-life balance, of course not realizing that she's also Superwoman now as well. But with Lois not there, Perry decides to head into his old office with Clark, reminiscing about how he always used to take the first print paper off the press, loving the smell of the fresh ink as it hit his nose and the feel of the paper. Now, if you followed Perry's run for mayor, a through line is that his opponents have always tried to frame him as just like an out-of-touch boomer. He's this old guy running for mayor after being the editor-in-chief of the local paper, people see him as over the hill and everything, and it's something that Perry has become very well aware of thanks to these stories, and he knows that he probably is that, but he also knows that the city runs through his veins. He's lived there his entire life, and he's kind of worried that if he wins, he'll go from writing about the city he loves to being responsible for it, and it's like a big undertaking. And the fact that the city has people like Superman in it, and Clark and Lois and the Daily Planet, is why he thinks he can actually do this. And I love that there's this real not so subtle hint that maybe Perry actually is aware that Clark is still Superman. I'm not sure how he would know, because if he did, he would still have a stroke, but maybe the magic is wearing off or something. But it's a very, very unsubtle hint, as when he's talking about being responsible for the city, the panels linger on Perry looking at a headline of Superman's first appearance as he asks Clark if he knows what it's like being responsible for the city. So it could just be kind of like a little tease or something, or just a little visual gag there, but I took that as like, oh, maybe he actually does know. And as we saw when his identity was announced to Perry, Perry just accepted it, because yeah, of course Perry would just do that. He wouldn't fly off the handle or anything, and I quite like the idea that he does know, and he's just kind of keeping it to himself. Perry soon notices that the sun is coming up and decides that his wife will kill him if he doesn't get home to do a PR meeting with his people. So Perry heads out, and the next day after the election, Lois stops by to see him, showing him the newest edition of the Daily Planet, which declares Perry White has become the new mayor of Metropolis. Now I'm really excited for Perry as mayor and hope it's something that doesn't just appear sporadically. I'm hoping it actually gets brought up quite a fair bit in the Superman ongoing and the Action Comics ongoing as like a story, like not something that's just relegated to like a backup of a backup or a short story. They could do some really interesting stuff with him as the mayor, since now we can sort of see how Metropolis politics works and how does the mayor of a city with Superman in it as well as various other heroes operate. Also, hey, at least one election this month went right. Action Comics issue 1075 continued Mark Waid's Phantom storyline with a real neat look at Krypton's past, leaving Superman with a new perspective on his parents and the Phantom Zone. Supergirl backup continues to be incredibly lackluster, but a really fun Perry White focused storyline finished out the issue on a high note and left you kind of smiling and excited to see what the future holds for Mayor Perry White. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10.